So I have been trying like crazy to get my fifth co-host. I mean, actually four because we do have Larry as the bookends on Monday and Friday, but I needed somebody for Tuesday to co-host Good News Tuesday. And I think many of you in the audience may have had the pleasure of seeing Nicholas as part of other YouTube channels. He's got his own YouTube channel. Maybe you've seen him there. Maybe you've seen him on Spaces. Maybe you follow him on X. If you're not following him on X, why aren't you following him on X? Anyway, we're going to cover the news today, of course, and we will end at a look at where the markets are, of course. But I wanted to start with a bit of background on Nicholas that will help you to understand why I reached out to him as the co-host for Good News Tuesday. Nicholas, brief bio, please.
Yeah, Randy, thank you for having me on. Appreciate it. Long time watcher, long time follower.
Appreciate it.
First time caller.
There it is. That was the whole reason, guys. That was why he's got the.
I drank the Randy Kool-Aid, so I got invited. Yeah, let me see. I'll try to keep this brief. My background. I uh, I went to a military academy where I graduated with a mechanical electrical engineering degree. I practiced in maybe not the best content to put out there, but I worked in the oil majors for many years as a mechanical electrical engineer. So when people speak about that space, I know it very well, and so lots of wrong information out there. But that's with everything. Did that for a long time, and as we all find ourselves whenever we're at work, the things, there's always things we're doing, we're kind of goofing off, or not goofing off, but like just trying to take a rest from work and just a little distraction. And I was always geeking out on tech, always. Everything I did was something tech related, some article, something. And that just eventually led me to say, hey, I don't want to be a mechanical electrical engineer anymore. I want to get into the software world. So through networking, communications, and taking some risks, I was able to not have to go back to college or anything for a degree. I was able to go and work in the Silicon Valley life, and I've been doing that for a while now. And yeah, I'm a big investor. Investing has been a passion of mine since I was a little kid. My stepfather got me into investing when I was about 14. So when I started, when I opened my first brokerage account, he was my custodian on it. First investments was in Apple. I was all in on Apple. Then I thought I
How
was
did that work
smart.
out for you?
It worked out pretty well. It
Yes.
worked out pretty well. Yeah. But that was my first investment. Went all in on that, and then I made a lot of mistakes. And then I discovered this company that was doing some interesting stuff. You might have heard of them. They're called Amazon. I
Yeah.
ended up going all into Amazon. Um, that panned out pretty well. And then now I'm all in on Tesla. So yeah, a little bit about my background, a little bit of my investing career, and I guess just to sum it up, yeah, I do have a YouTube channel. I do have a Slack. I do have a X handle. You can see it down below my signature. Nick Gibbs, IAG. Investing Against the Grain is the name of my YouTube channel. Investing Against the Grain. I created the channel really kind of looking to the future. Dave Lee always talked about making videos for his kids so that they could see, what his dad did and potential lessons. I thought there's something beautiful about that. And I don't know if my way of investing is wrong, right or wrong. I think only time will tell. But I did think that it'd be cool to leave kind of a video memoir for my future kids to be able to see what dad did. Maybe they'll just learn from my mistakes, or maybe they'll see the, the fruits of my labor of conviction of staying in the company and doing analysis and research and all that, and see how that pans out. But that's why I started this channel. And I also thought, I couldn't find enough content on Tesla. And while there are a lot of Tesla creators out there, I couldn't get enough. So I was like, you know what? If I'm feeling this way, others must feel this way. So I figured let's throw my hat in the ring, and it's been a wild ride since, making great friends with everybody. And yeah, I'll be quiet now.
All right, so that's how you decided to become a YouTuber. But what was the original stimulation for your interest in Tesla? What I don't know whether my audience even knows. For me, I got a ride in a Model. I think it was it was a Model 3 about 7 years ago, and the guy was a hot rod like me, and he took me up and down Main Street of Corona, a 35-mile-an-hour zone at 0 to 70, in no time flat. And I was like, oh man, this is just there's nothing, this is such a leap. And that's how I got in. How about you?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Huh.
I think it was a trickle effect. So it wasn't like just one thing, then like boom, it happened. It was definitely a trickle effect. I guess I would say it really starts with Steve Jobs. I was obsessed with Steve Jobs and his way of thinking. I love certain things he would say, as in people don't know what they want until you tell them what they want, right? You have to design it, right? People think they want buttons. They don't know they want no buttons, right? This type of thinking, the thinking of working from the customer experience and then going backwards, the idea of, you know, complexity should be hidden behind, or the complexity of a product should be hidden and it should be simple to use. All of that kind of ingrained in me. And over the years, I slowly fell, developed a romance for Elon Musk, just seeing the man, just accomplish things left and right. You have to keep in mind, for the most part, I grew up on the east coast of Florida in the Cape Canaveral area. So everything there, I mean, the area code to my phone number is 321, right? So like I live in the Space Coast, right? It's nothing but engineering and tech and everything there. It's like the East Coast version of a Silicon Valley, but with rockets. And yeah, but so I knew who Elon was. I had a fascination for him, and more listening to him, I liked a lot of the things he was saying. Same kind of stuff you would hear Steve Jobs say. The best part's no part, delete, delete, delete. These are things that I believed heavily in. I'm a very big minimalist person. I like to declutter. I like to get rid of things. I think my wife says it the best. She's in design, and she designs like museums and hotels and just like these beautiful spaces. And something she always says to me, or something she said to me a while ago that really stood out to me was, if you're in a museum, what you don't want is a lot of stuff. The negative space allows for the beauty of what's on display. So clutter takes away from the beauty. And you see a lot of that in the design and the ethos with Tesla and Apple. And so a lot of that stuff, like it's slowly like piecing these things that I believe in and that I resonate with. And then I would say in 2018, I started listening to a lot of, or maybe actually in 2017, I I started to really try to figure out what's the next big thing. Like where's technology going? Because that's how I got into Apple. That's how I got into Amazon, was because I was asking myself, like, where's technology going?
Mhm.
With Apple, I got really into touchscreen surfaces. I almost went all in on Microsoft instead of Apple, because they had this coffee table called the Surface, and it was just a prototype. But they're talking about this made in restaurants, and you could just split the bill at the table, and all this never came to fruition. But then that led me down a rabbit hole to learn about rumors of Apple coming out with the phone, and then Apple said that they had an event coming up, and that's when I was like, well, let's invest in them because this might be what's coming out. Anyways, so that's kind of the way my thinking was, and so I was asking myself, what's the next big thing? And this is where I start to hear a lot of like Mark Cuban, people like that, talk about deep thinking, deep learning. And so, now we call it just AI or machine learning. But I
Right.
started diving into this and trying to figure out what would have the biggest implications of this. And this led me down towards autonomous vehicles. And that led me down to discovering who Cathie Woods is and ARK Invest. And that whole rabbit hole happened. And at that point, I was kind of signed, sealed, delivered. It seemed to me like Tesla was the only company that's going to do it right. It seemed like Elon Musk was the only one that could do it. I mean, he's landing rockets, he's sending, he's done with PayPal. It's like at that point, I was betting on the man
Yeah.
to lead the future of what I thought the future would be, which was autonomous vehicles. So it was kind of just a trickle effect, like it wasn't just one thing, but it was like all of this compounding to this, you get to this apex and it's like, oh my goodness, it's just so obvious. This is where we need to go. So I know
Well,
that was long-winded, but I hope that
no,
answers
it's
it.
good. It's good. It's perfect. Absolutely wonderful. Listen, In another one of your videos, I noticed that you are smart enough to be predicting
Wait,
that
let me get my
Tesla,
wife in here.
he's really smart to think that we're going to hit 300 by the end of the year. Now, you might have said that a while ago, and I don't know if you still feel that way, but do you still think that? And why do you think that? And is there any chance that maybe with 2 rejections at 260, maybe we're not going to get there?
Yeah. So I've been saying this for a while now. I think, I don't know, maybe since like August or July. Um, really, it's picking a number out of the air is really what it is at the end of the day. It's, we don't know. No one knows. I don't know what it's going to be. It's all speculation, guesswork. But, I thought, hey, like let's pin the number down. What do I think it would be at? And at the time, I thought conservatively, Tesla should at least be at $300 a share by the end of the year. And that was not just Tesla as a business, but also looking at the macro and everything.
Sure.
And some of the videos that you mentioned that I was talking about Q1, Q2, where I was talking about, the macro might be a little challenge, doesn't mean that the stock market would be challenged, but the macro would be because of the Fed. I think I hit the nail on the head with those. And the reason I said Q1, Q2 is because you could see through the CPI prints what would happen going into the back half of the year. And so, again, if you look at what's going to happen, I think the Fed pivoting or not pivoting, whatever you want to call it, on this last meeting is very predictable. Why? Well, just look at the numbers that are going to roll off come January and February. We have a 0.5 and a 0.4. We're sitting at 3.1. Like, it's very obvious that we're going to be in this, sub 3, maybe 2.5-ish, very, very in Q1. Right? It's very obvious. And the more that CPI drops or inflation drops and the Fed stays higher, that delta is more head pressure on inflation. So as it comes down, that means in a way, it means they're tightening more by not decreasing rates.
Down, yes.
Yeah. So it seemed pretty logical what was going to happen. So all those things just, it just seemed like it was 300 just seemed like a fair bet. I still think we could get there. Maybe not by December 31st, but I mean, when do we release
numbers?
Whenever, yeah, exactly, right. So that was the other thing, is that tends to be a very bullish day when those numbers come out, or the next day. I mean, if you look at what happened in what was it, January of 2022, that was the last good day we had,
good day.
where Tesla stock went up, and then from there on we had the terrible 2022. Yeah, but that's kind of my point. I think we're gonna have great numbers. I mean, what they report earlier today, 18,000 in China. I mean, yeah, like they're gonna hit their numbers, and I don't think they're gonna try to exceed it. I think they're just gonna work on getting to 1.8 because what's the point, right? Like, you might as well try to keep things as flat as possible and lead into the next year. So yeah, I think 300 is still more than feasible. I think Tesla's extremely undervalued right now, and I think people are starting to notice. As far as your point about those resistance or attempts to break out, I don't think that means much at all. I think we're in a weird time. People are starting to take vacation. Volume's starting to come down. Now you have Fed speakers coming out trying to play the inverse of what right. It's like this constant game they do. So, right. If Jerome Powell comes out hawkish, well, the Fed speakers come out and they try to sound dovish. Right. If he comes out dovish, they try and come out sound. It's like this. It's this game, but at the same time, I personally think the Fed is political. Not saying left or right, but I do think they can be influenced. Trump clearly influenced them in 2018. I think there are other powers that could influence them right now going into the election. And really, they can't win, if you think about it. If they start doing it now, it's political. If they start doing it later, it's political. If they do it after the election, it's political. So
I agree with you 100%. All right. Well, now that we've agreed on everything, it's been really nice talking to you folks. All right. Okay. So we've got that one nailed down. I know that your number for next year is 450. My number for the end of next year is 700. We'll talk about those things another day, but everybody right now, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I think everybody's concentrating on three numbers, even more than the stock. How many Cybertrucks next year? How many bots next year? How many total cars next year?
That's a good question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so let me think. So I just did a video with Hans yesterday where we were breaking down Sandy's
Outstanding
walkthrough.
video. Everybody should go look at that video. I've only seen half of it, but the first half of it is amazing. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so we're looking at it, and I tell you what, they look like they're set up for volume. That's for sure. And I think we're seeing about 25 Cybertrucks a day at this point. Um, I think they'll probably be at about 100,000 by the end of 2024.
Run rate or 100,000 out the door?
Deliveries.
Deliveries. Okay. All right.
And I think that's conservative. I think it's
Okay.
conservative.
Okay. Because of what you analyzed in terms of the kinds of numbers that they're making, how far they are along in the production process, et cetera.
Yeah, because I was just doing quick math on some of the things that Lars was saying about the inners and outers and the amount of foundries they have, about 24. And if you do it, that means that they have the ability, just based on that, which there's other parts of the line, but inners and outers are a pretty important part. That would be about 500,000. So I don't know, like, how long does it take to scale? It does not seem like it's going to be that complicated for them. I know they went through or hell or made it extremely hard on themselves, whatever the phrasing was. But I think I think they've got some things pretty ironed out. Now, as you ramp up, you learn things you wouldn't have known, right? I can't know what Prone's going to have at 10,000 until I get there, right? These things happen, but barring any kind of catastrophic thing happening, I see that ramping up pretty fast. But yeah, I think 100,000 delivery for Cybertruck 2024.
All right. How about bots?
Bots.
This is my big argument with the whole world right now. I'm like all by myself, and everybody else is like, Randy, calm down. Anyway, your thoughts?
Deliveries to potential customers next year, 0.
Oh no, not another one.
Yeah, I think because the bot that we saw recently that was just released, I don't think that will be sold ever. I think there's another iteration to come. That's not that one. It's definitely not gonna be that one. I mean, you could just tell by the feet. I think the feet of it kind of show that's still a prototypish. Anyways, I think there'll be another iteration, but I still think that they'll probably make, I don't know, anywhere from 1,000 to 5,000 next year. I could see that, and I could see them starting to work in the factories. I mean, again, just watching that Sandy Monroe video, you could see. I mean, this is just the Cybertruck line that we didn't even see the whole thing. I was like, oh, the bot could do that. The bot could do that. The bot could be there, right? So, I think next year is about working on the production line, figuring those kinks out, using them internally, and trying to learn how to train at scale, which the bot has not done yet, has not had the ability to do yet, right? That's gonna be the hard part, right? Tesla had to learn how to do that with the FSD fleet, where you're taking the scale of data. How do I synthesize it? How do I just take what I need? How do I learn from that? How do I take signal and noise and distill that and only take the signal? How do I search and index what I am looking for to learn, right? So there's a lot there. And I think that's what they're going to be doing over 2024, is learning how to scale and train from a bot perspective because it's different than a vehicle, right? Like now I've got limbs and I've got dexterity I have to take into account. It's not just cameras and, turn or brake or accelerator, right? There's more to it. And yeah, and I think they're going to be also learning how to scale the manufacturing for this. So I think that's what 2024 will be. 2025, all bets are off. 2025, I think, is when it's like, okay, things are happening.
Numbers. Okay. And then how many cars? The street says, I think the street is still at 2.1. I think Troy Teslike might be around 2.1 or 2.2. Now you got Gary Black and Larry are both at 2.4. I haven't come out. I came out with a number of 2.35. I haven't decided if that's my final number. Where you sit?
I would say you and Larry are probably spot on. 235, 24. I mean, I think they're going to continue to 50% compound from the 2020 number. And I think they'll continue to do that. There's a lot of catalysts going to next year. I mean, on the one hand, I think the reason people are so hesitant to say, oh, we can get to 2.4 is because like, well, how many Model Ys can you sell? Well, how many Model 3s can you sell before you saturate that market, before you saturate the $40,000, $50,000 market, right? Because there's only so many people that can afford that. Well, that was the same argument people had for the iPhone. It was the exact same argument. And it's like, it's just hilarious to see the same things be said over and over and over again. It's comical. But the truth is, people are doing it. There's a reason why it's the best-selling vehicle in the world. And I think if we're gonna do that, the best-selling vehicle in 2023, which let's remind everybody, this is the year of the highest interest rates we've seen in 40 years, highest inflation we've seen in 40 years, and we're going to be going into 2024 where it seems inflation has more or less been conquered, and it seems like rates are coming down. And now, not only that, but we've grown our TAM with the Cybertruck. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they'll be able to do it and potentially open up the India market. There's something that could be happening there. China is hell-bent on spurring their economy right now and trying to avoid a hard landing, a recession there, right? So it's just don't bet against them. Just that's all I can say. Buy and hold.
All right. Now, for those who have stayed with the program this long, and of course, the first time having Nicholas on, you should have stayed. But anyway, if you stayed this long now, you're going to get breaking news. This is amazing. Just before we started recording, Cathie Wood is going to interview Elon on Spaces later this week. And she's asking for us, the community, to provide her with questions that she should ask. This should be classic. I mean, this may go down in history as the most classic interview of all time. I don't know what her interviewing skills are like, but since she's reaching out for people to provide questions, that should really be a help. I'm just hoping she does avoid the same old questions. My number one question, if I was the guy that was going to ask him, would always be the same one I just asked you, is how many bots in 2024, because I'm just dying on that one. But what about you? Do you have any questions? What do you think about the Cathie Wood interview? Do you think this is going to be as cool as I think it's going to be? And do you have any questions in mind?
Yeah, I really wish Elon would do a interview with someone from our community, because I feel like we would ask more nuanced questions, more, because people ask like all these questions, but then there's like these like little gaps in between where if you're not plugged into the community, you don't know to ask those questions. So kudos to Cathie for trying to reach out to community and crowdsource questions. But yeah, I think she'll probably do a good job. I just hope she talks less, asks more questions, but at the same time, think what you will about him. Andrew Ross Sorkin, Deal Desk. I thought he did a good job of interrupting Elon to keep him from going on his like tangents and tirades. I thought he did a good job on it. I wasn't the biggest fan of his questions always, but I thought he did a good job of, because Elon will do that. And then also we're hearing the same thing, a flame, the abyss. It's like, all right, we know this, Elon, but answer this question. Let's go back to it. So I hope she can thread that needle. So I think it will be great no matter what. My question, I actually put it in her thread there.
Okay.
What I want to know is, from his point of view, will Optimus be in operation doing useful work first, or will FSD Robotaxi come out first? Because Optimus has really a lower threshold of a bar to cross, whereas FSD Robotaxi has higher. I would love to know his perspective on that and how he sees that. So that'd be my question.
Interesting. Great question. Great question. Well, Alexander Mers, a Tesla Boomer Mama, she says, wow, this was a bitter, bitter pill for them to swallow. Do we remember who had to set up Electrify America, a $2 billion investment because of their lies and their VW gate or whatever it was called?
Dieselgate.
Dieselgate, right. So then Sawyer Merritt says, breaking, VW just announced they will adopt the North American charging standard in 2025. VW customers will be able to access 15,000 Tesla superchargers in North America. And this leaves only Stellantis as the last major automaker left. When you combine this information with the decisions by BP and others to start buying Tesla superchargers and the fact that they've just posted a job listing for somebody to kind of run that division, what do you think?
I think this is just another, feather in the hat of all the people who have been saying for, I don't know, the last 5 years that the end is coming for legacy auto manufacturers. I mean, this is just yet another capitulation that we're seeing. Look, the writing's on the wall, and it's hard because on one hand, I don't want to give financial advice to like friends or family or anything like that. But on the other hand, I see what's happening with Tesla. It's just so blatantly obvious to me, the same way Amazon was, the same way Apple was. And it's just like, I can't scream it loud enough. And this is just yet more proof points. Like, how many times do you have to see it? Whether it's Ford, whether it's GM. I mean, Mary Barra's recent interview, right? It's insane. Whether you see what's happening with VW from pulling back investments, not opening the factory they're supposed to open up, cutting their entire dev team, getting rid of Herbert Diess, them not being able to reduce headcount because of the unions, and instead they're going to have to make other cuts. It's just right on the wall. And so now they're capitulating even on this when they already have Electrify America. It's game, set, match. Like Elon said it 2019 during the autonomous day there. It's game, set, match. It's over. It's just a matter of time. It's death by 1,000 cuts.
So I was complaining that not one mainstream media, like Fortune magazine or Inside Business, none of the mainstream financial press or the mainstream press, New York Times, Post, or any of the other, nobody commented at all about the Tesla bot video last week. I mean, you had it in the regular, the local kinds of tech magazines that we all enjoy, but not in the big ones. So, but today, Forbes, they finally said some nice things about the bot. They did have a couple of negatives, but overall, it was a good magazine or a good article about the bot. But you know what it was covering? It was covering the notes from 3 or 4 days ago by, was it Morgan Stanley or whoever that came out with that long note?
Adam Jonas?
Yeah, Adam Jonas. It was about Adam Jonas's note. So anyway, what do you think about the mainstream media and the fact that I think the general public doesn't really get the bot at all? And apparently the mainstream media and the investing class doesn't either. What is it going to take for them to just go, oh my gosh, this is, as you just pointed out, this is crazy. It's going to be so nuts.
I don't think they will get it. I don't think they will. You know what the problem is? The problem is that they are caught between a rock and a hard place. And that rock and hard place is the fact that their type of business is dying, right? It's like atrophy right now. They're getting less viewers, yet they need to still make money, and the only way they do that by printing negative things, right? If it bleeds, it leads. I mean,
Yeah.
really, you see that all over YouTube. And I mean, it's just crazy. Like if you just look at any YouTuber, they're getting way more views. Anyone on X, they get way more views than this mainstream media. Like, how mainstream is it? Like, those are tiny channels on YouTube or on X. And so they're in this weird place. And, you know, I don't think they care to learn or to actually do real reporting. It seems like journalism's, at least in the mainstream media, journalism's dead. They don't really do research. They don't really study what they're talking about. They try to be the first out there. They try to just get a quick story or whatever, and they don't ever report the whole side of or they don't report all sides of the story.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't think they'll ever get it. And but I'll play devil's advocate with Optimus. I can understand skepticism. I can understand that. I mean, really, we don't know what Optimus has accomplished. We don't really know what strides Tesla has made with Optimus. Sure, we saw them move an egg from one hand to the other. We saw it move with a little bit of a toe pitch, where we saw some things, but we don't really know if they told the bot just to move the egg. We don't know why it's moving it from one hand to the other. We don't know why it's using these fingers. If it just decided to do that on its own, if it was kind of based on certain training and it's just mimicking what it saw. There's a lot we don't know either. So I can understand skepticism, but it's not like the mainstream media is coming from that skepticism because of the research they've done. They're like, well, there's still a lot I don't know. They're just coming into the skepticism and be like, oh, here's Elon Musk trying to do something else crazy, right? So
But
I don't know. It's
but the opposite of that, Nicholas, is that every single day, as I'm reading these headlines, which what I spend almost all day doing is reading headlines, reading articles. You see, somebody comes out with a new battery, and it's getting headlines everywhere, and it's still in the lab.
yeah,
Here is a bot that literally is walking around looking extremely human, more so than any other bot that is available out there. It is being paraded out there by who? By Elon Musk. Everybody, even if they hate him, they acknowledge that he's brilliant and he's, how could you not? And so you would think that the combination of who's showing it and the fact that it really is advanced in terms of
yeah.
what you can see, just the visualization without any research at all, far more advanced than a lot of these batteries and things that they're touting that are still sitting in somebody's lab that's never even begun to go to scale.
Yeah, the problem is, again, it goes back to the lack of research understanding,
No.
right? Because they'll see that and they're like, oh, okay, it can walk a little less awkwardly, still walks awkwardly, and okay, it grabbed an egg to move it. Meanwhile, here Boston Dynamics has backflips, fulls, throwing stuff, but they don't understand that one is, human programmed to do certain things. They don't understand that it's not a build for scale for manufacturing. They don't understand the battery load that has, right? That's only going to probably last for about 30 minutes. They don't understand any of that, and they don't care to. But at the same point, let me add to what you're saying there. To me, if I give investment advice to anyone, it's to always pay attention to those articles about these new batteries coming out, about things like Optimus. Pay attention to the people out there trying to innovate and change the world. You want to be focusing on those things and doing your research on those. And then figure out which one of those have people who are supporting or investing or have leadership that tends to be right and winners over and over and over. That's my biggest thing. Figure out what the future is going and figure out which people continue to be right over and over. And Elon is someone who just keeps being right over and over, right? And so my whole thing is, why do people listen to all these analysts like a Gordon Johnson?
Right.
He's been wrong over and over and over. Look at Ron Barron. He's been right over and over and over. Why would I listen to Gordon Johnson over Ron Barron? Like,
Yeah.
forget about Tesla and anything. Who am I going to listen to? The people who keep being right, or the people who just keep being wrong because one day they're going to be right because it's overvalued? Right. It's so yeah. So keep your eye out, keep your ear to the ground for innovation that's happening. Do your research, and then lean into the people who just keep being successful, keep being right. Be right a lot. Those are things you want to find. Be less wrong. That's what you want to look for.
Be less wrong. That's right. All right. Well, this is the time of the show when we take a look at where the markets are, the pre-markets are the after hours. If you talk about the stocks, I guess it's the after hours. And if you talk about the rest of it, it's the pre-market. Why is that? Okay. So anyway, we have Tesla exactly at 0 in the after hours. It has not moved an inch since it closed. It was actually up just a few seconds ago, but it's now back down to exactly 0. So I'm still thinking, I believe that it's going to crash through 260. Maybe it'll be tomorrow. I think there's every reason to believe it's sitting at 257. So 261, 262 tomorrow, maybe more. And then we just keep inching our way up towards that 300. And like you said, this is not a hard, I've said over and over, this 300 is not my hard number. This is my roughly, that's about what it'll be at the end of the year, based on my analysis of how the stock market looks and how the company looks. My hard number is the all-time high, 410 on January 31st, or, give it a day or two, it could be off by a little. But after the earnings call, we're going to all-time highs. That's the one that I'm going to stick by. And yes, I will probably be wrong and everybody will give me a hard time, but
I love that. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, to be honest, if we hit 300 anywhere between December and February, I will, in my book, all right, we were right. Like we did it. Like I'm not gonna over a couple months. But I'll tell you my point of view on the markets right now. And I honestly haven't told anybody this.
Okay,
so we just bought another house. Yeah, we just bought another house. And so, I think we got a really good deal on it, especially where it's at. I'm a big location person. But we bought it thinking that things were going to change. We went under contract December 1st. And then all of a sudden, all this good news came out, and all of a sudden, yields started dropping. I was like, I looked at my wife, and I was like, you can't make this stuff up. So I genuinely think we're on the other side. The only warning of caution I would throw out there, and history does not repeat itself, right? It may rhyme, it may look similar, but the only thing I would say is, last time the Fed cut rates in the same kind of manner we're seeing now was in 07, and then we saw what happened. 08, 09, but completely different situations. Okay. I just say that because it's worth at least knowing, right? And do with that what you will, but I don't see any similarity.
Any comparison.
But no. Yeah. But at the same time, nobody saw it back then either. So like we don't know what we don't see that's right in front of our face.
That's not true. You were just a child. but I saw
Fair enough. You're not wrong.
I saw it coming. I can show you blog posts that I made 2 years before the crash talking about the fact that these derivatives were nuts. I can show you that George Bush II was trying to get Congress to move on the derivatives because he said these are nuts. So there were people that saw what was coming ahead of that.
And Randy, let me interject. And that's how you should like and subscribe right now.
That's right.
Where else are you going to hear this stuff?
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah. So great points there, Randy. But yeah, I'm pretty bullish going into next year.
I think so. Yeah.
So the only real caution I have is what's Elon going to say on the earnings call and what's his sentiment.
Yeah, right.
And honestly, I think he's been spot on this whole time on the markets. I think he literally called the recession.
Last year,
you don't think so?
Going to a recession. He thought we were going to have a hard crash.
He said summer of 2022. Summer of 2022, we had 2 consecutive negative.
He said after that. He said after that. Yeah. He messed that one. Come on, he really did. He said it was going to be.
I'm just saying
this year was going to be a difficult year, and it was a pretty good year actually overall.
Stock wise, but I'm sure it was difficult for them, right? They're playing a lot with discounts.
Oh no, it was hard. It was hard because of the interest rates. But he thought it was
I agree.
He thought it was going to be hard because the economy was going to really, really tank.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at the bonds. Bonds are the 10-year is down another almost full basis point.
We like that.
As of this moment,
Nick is still floating.
You
Nick is
are?
still floating, so we
Oh,
like that. Yep.
okay, okay. So it's actually right now, a full basis point, just switched over to a full basis point. The 2-year is down a half a basis point. The 2-month is up. I just keep talking about how there's going to be a day, there's going to be a reckoning day when all of these shorter terms are going to, there's going to be an explosion upwards on the short terms, because as you pointed out earlier on the difference between the inflation rate and the bond rate, you can't have that continue because at some point it collapses on itself. I think the difference between this inversion that we have cannot continue unless
Yeah.
unless the idea that the aging population and the way people invest when they're older is going to shift things forever. I cannot figure out why that would definitely necessarily mean that all of a sudden short-term interest rates would be higher than long-term forever. So I can't figure that out. If you figure it out, let me know next Wednesday.
Yeah, not smart enough for that. I'm curious though. Um, what's your take on PCE this Friday?
Oh, I think that the Fed already knew. That doesn't mean that they
Oh,
get advanced. No, that doesn't mean they get advanced notice. But the PCE, there is kind of some stuff you can do with the math. You can kind of look at last year's numbers, add in the CPI, look at the anyway. I can't think of all the elements right now, but he even said it in his question and answer period. He says, based on the CPI, we have projected that the PCE is going to come in okay. Okay, so I think there are ways to mathematically get really close to guessing what happens on the PCE. So I'm going to guess that it's going to be pretty much where the market thinks it's going to be. And I think that's why the market gets the PCE right so frequently.
yeah.
It can mathematically project it. I did a whole
Well
show
said.
on that. I did a whole show on that about 3 months ago. I just don't remember all the elements to the formula right now.
No, I hear you. But well said, well said.
Okay, the oil is unchanged. And I was thinking about why isn't the Red Sea Suez Canal thing interfering with oil? And then all of a sudden, I just kind of looked a little sideways, which I hadn't really paid any attention. I always look at Texas Intermediate because I'm a nationalist. I love America. Anyway,
Yeah.
so I look at Texas Intermediate and I only rarely look at Brent. Oh, well, Brent, which is normally about $3 more expensive, right now it's $6 more. So that's how the Red Sea Suez Canal thing is affecting oil, is that the Brent, which is from, that area, the Brent is definitely gone up in price. So that's kind of interesting. Natural gas up $2, 2.85% in the after hours, which is pretty strong. And it's been way down. So this could be a bounce, or it could be, again, partially due to rising price of the Brent and the reality that Europe might not have enough oil and might have to find gas in the situations where they can use the natural gas to solve it. Gold is up $1.40. That's not very much. So but still sitting in that range around 2054. And the dollar also, the Japanese the Bank of Japan decided today to keep things easy, to keep things very, very easy in Japan, which of course means that that's a flight from their dollar or from their yen. And so the dollar would normally be showing strength against the yen, which is of course what is happening. Do you play Bitcoin at all?
Um, oof. Some people are not going to like when I say this. No, I do not. Other than through Tesla's holdings of Bitcoin, I do not play Bitcoin.
All right. So for those who like Bitcoin, it is up in the after hours. It's sitting at 42.3. And here we go. The pre-market, the Dow is down 17 points, which is 0.04%. The S&P is down, call it even. And the NASDAQ is up 13. So that is the normal situation, as opposed to this, when I say normal, for the last, 8 months or something, as opposed to the cycle that I've been kind of expecting of maybe going into some of these value stocks and some of the dividend paying stocks as opposed to the tech. but the rotation is not happening today in the after hours. It did happen during the regular hours today. All right, so I always take one last look at Tesla before we go. Now it's up 28 cents. Looky there.
Hey, lucky. Do
Last
you play?
thoughts. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. Do you do anything with Bitcoin?
I do not. I don't have any. Everybody gets mad at me when I say it, and they will again. Fiat currencies like the dollar, even though there's no gold standard anymore, are still based on the full faith and credit of the United States government, which owns, I don't know, probably half of the wealth in the world when you take into consideration the natural resources and the buildings and the whole thing. So you got the full faith and credit behind the dollar. You have zero nothing. There is nothing other than scarcity that undergirds the Bitcoin. I can't figure out why that is important enough to make it a thing.
Yeah. I mean, I have struggles with Bitcoin. Like on the one hand, I do find it very compelling in what it is and the fact that it is a finite amount. And especially with the halving event coming up, if you're familiar with the halving event, it should be happening in April. That's also very compelling to want to buy some Bitcoin. But what I struggle with is I can't model anything out with Bitcoin. I can't sit there and say, oh, Bitcoin's going to produce X amount of this with this margin by this date. And so if I throw this PE on it, this is what it should be worth.
Right.
Instead, I'm just sitting there with hopium saying, I hope it replaces fiat one day. And that's a struggle for me. So while Bitcoin may go to 100,000, 500,000, $1 million, and I'll have missed out on it, it's hard to be able to go into something without understanding why I'm going into it and just hoping that one day the world adopts this.
Yeah.
That's difficult for me.
I think we're very close on that. Okay. All right. So I'm saying the market continues up to the end of the year, even though there is definitely at this point some pressure on the markets because they're a little overextended. But I don't think that's going to matter. I think there's a lot of money coming off the sidelines. A lot of people want to get in. And I think that will continue into the new year as the earnings come out and do quite well, I think, in the first quarter. So, in the first month of the quarter. So other than that, last thought.
It's all about PCE at this point for the rest of the year. PCE, good number. That means the rest of the year will be a good number. Tesla delivery numbers, January. We could have a bullish January run.
All right. So thank you so much, Nicholas Gibbs. Are you any relation to the famous Dr. John Gibbs?
I am not, but we have spoken about our last names a lot.
All right. So now that we know that, we got that out of the way. Thanks again for being with us and co-hosting on the Good News Tuesday show. And to all of you out there, it has been great talking to you.